I'm your host, Peter Bojarnov, and you can find me on Twitter at Russian98. And I am with today...
Logan Proskrenak at Hoagie99.
Welcome to the show, Logan.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. So Logan's going to help me from time to time with the show. Of course, with one of the usual segments we have on the show, which is Trending Now. Logan, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Born and raised out west, follow mainly the Edmonton Oilers and have some hate for some other Western teams. So, and a couple from the East, I guess. Work in broadcast, so I get to see a little bit more hockey games at work because of it. So, that's a pleasure. It's a bonus of my work.
I love that you said, I hate a couple teams in the West and a couple teams in the East. So basically, you hate every other team in Canada except for your team.
I mean, I don't mind some teams. I think I can like Montreal.
Yeah, maybe some days.
Some days, not all days.
So again, you can also follow us on at Jablam Hockey, JABLAMHOCKY, and our website, jablamhockey.com. And you can hashtag us, hashtag Jablam, hashtag Jablam Hockey, or hashtag JHockey. Go on the website. We've already got a couple of blogs out there. I got my predictions for the divisions and breakout players for each team in each division. So check out that. And Brett already has a blog that a lot of people are hating on with the whole Nylander scenario, and maybe the Leafs should move him. And that's one of the segments we have this episode is my predictions now for the NHL Awards. What else do we have this episode? We're going to be doing more Trending Now. And, of course, we've got a huge Team ISO this week where we're going to be Team ISOing the Montreal Canadiens. And we have special guest Ian Boisvert back again talking more Canadiens. Time for some Trending Now. You're going to love this part, aren't you, Logan?
I like trending things.
All right. So let's get right to it. Matthews is better than McDavid, right, Logan?
No, not in this universe.
All right.
Not in this NHL.
So it all exploded when I think it was Ray Ferraro decided to tweet out something on the lines of, Matthews is a good player or better than McDavid, or what was he trying to say? Nobody really got it. But in the end, I think Jason Gregor, who's on Oilers Nation and on TSN Radio, I believe in Edmonton, he tweeted back to him, said, Matthews is really good. If he didn't play in Toronto, Oiler fans wouldn't despise him as much. He isn't at McDavid's level yet, but he is close. I take him on my team over pretty much any center right now, except for 97, when you consider age, etc. And then Ray Ferraro tweeted him back, that's all I tried to say, but apparently I didn't do a good job of that. LOL.
Sounds about right. And actually, I was kind of surprised Ray Ferraro tweeted something like that because I believe it was Jeff O'Neill, trade deadline or one of those shows where O'Neill kind of went, I'd rather have Matthews and McDavid on my team 100% if I'm starting a draft now. And Ray Ferraro kind of gave him that look like, what? That's a stupid comment. Mm-hmm. Of course you want McDavid on your team over Matthews. That's not, if you're a team picking either or, you're happy you got one, honestly.
Yeah.
And Matthews is lighting up the league right now, and McDavid is as well, just not as much.
Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit just after this in terms of record-breaking, early records. But if you go points per game, you could give the slight edge almost to Matthews in terms of, the last while. Even maybe last year. It's crazy because I think Matthews is right now on a streak where he's I don't know, roughly 15 or 20 points more points per game than his last 60 games or so forth. So right now he is on fire, dating back to, I guess, January 1st or something like that.
He is on a crazy streak. He's two points per game, 5 games in the season. He's on pace for still over 160 points.
Yeah. But going back to regular seasons, and obviously we all know that he didn't do so great in the playoffs in the short, 6, 7 games that he played. But going back to almost January 1st, he is pretty much the hottest player in the NHL. So he's been going on a good pace since then. And is Matthews better defensively than McDavid right now, would you say?
I think they'd be on par in that as soon as the puck just thinks about going the other way, they're both their foot speed, or they're both pointed towards the opposition's net. Mm-hmm. As soon as that turnover, waiting for a turnover to happen. It's just McDavid has a better foot speed than Matthews does.
Yeah. So it's an interesting question to ask, and I think maybe in the future it's possible that Matthews keeps on bridging the gap. I don't think he'll ever, in offensively overall, with speed-wise, be better than or close to McDavid, but he's getting closer, and I think, in my opinion, I think Matthews is a little bit more of an all-around complete player. So.
Well, under Babcock system, yeah, that's probably accurate, honestly. Babcock doesn't just let you not play defense in your own end. While as Todd guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't really seem to know how to coach a power play, let alone defense. So
that's where all the issues stem. They stem from the coaching, is it?
I think so. He's been on the hot seat since the start of the season, which is not a great way to start the season, but Elliot Friedman was saying a couple days ago, it's like a third game in. The team owner's there. They bring in a coach from Calgary to assist. Mm-hmm. You think he knows his job's on the line if he doesn't do something, but
yeah, we're going to be doing the NHL Season Award Predictions, and I was like, the Calgary coach, I think he could do, if Calgary does really well this season, I could think he could be a nominee for the award. That Glenn Gulston guy, he's right. He's still the coach, right? No, it's not. He's in Edmonton. Oh, whatever.
Bill Peters, he's a good guy from Old Carolina guy, I believe.
Yes, that is correct. So, yeah. All right, so let's go transitioning to record breaking. A lot of people are like, oh, look at these records everybody's breaking. And already some people are fed up with it. With, I guess, Matthews, obviously, and his first, 10 games. He's breaking the record, Gretzky's record for the most points in a game in the first 10 games. And Morgan Riley has already surpassed Orr for the most points by a defenseman in the first 5 games. And then Palmieri's breaking all Devils records with a goal in every single game for the Devils. And McDavid just goes ahead and blows Oilers records now with I don't know how many points he has in the so few games that they have. But again, he had 4 points again on Tuesday night. So, is it too much?
But not in the overtime winner. It's never. Records are made to be broken. Every player will tell you that.
Yeah.
Gretzky wants his records to be broken.
That's impossible.
Well, most of them are impossible. Yes, I think Orr is happy to have his records broken too.
Yeah.
But it's also a different era than the 80s is different than the 50s is different than now.
Yeah.
Whatever we're in now. The teens? We're in the teens?
We're in the 20 teens. Yeah. It's hard to say it, I guess. But yeah, McDavid's was a point in every single Oilers goal, the first 9, until they finally scored in overtime. And what? McDavid was not a part of it?
I think he just went for not even a line change, just a drink of water.
He was still on the ice, but he was taking a sip. Nice. So, but is it too early to be talking about records as well, or no? It's never too early either.
if there's a record to be broken, like some of these records are the most, there's qualifiers on a lot of these, so the most goals in the first 9 games or 5 games, but there's still names attached to them like Orr and Gretzky and whoever else the Leafs had in the back of the 80s.
Yeah, like even players on the Devils or players on the Oilers that Palmieri or McDavid are breaking. But the cool thing is, what I like about it is, we are entering into a new era now. Offense is coming back. Goalies take a back seat.
Goalies are getting shelled this year.
But you know what? People aren't talking really about. Apparently, they've decreased the equipment again.
Yeah, I heard a little bit about that, and it was just not so much an offhand comment, but just like a 30-second. We'll compare. It was Craig Anderson's shoulders last year to this year. Yeah, and I've noticed a lot of guys seem to be shooting high shoulder too. So like, where you think you have that little bit of pad, you don't anymore. So
that's not. It's going to take a transition for these goalies that have been used to a certain size of equipment. If it's the pads, if it's the shoulder pads, if it doesn't matter. There's going to be an adjustment period. So I think the goalies are still going to be good, but it will take a time. Stats will be higher until then, and and then of course the transition to less pugnacious players into having very highly skilled depth players on the fourth line now. So you're going to get you're going to get a lot more scoring, and then of course you're bringing up younger guys faster. I've never seen a huger transition to letting the younger guys play, and of course then things like happened to Pettersson.
Yeah, Pettersson. Yeah, a lot of Nuge has never played a full season. I think every first overall draft pick the Oilers had only lasted 60 games. Like Hall was out with something, Yakupov was out with an ankle injury. Nuge, left shoulder, right shoulder, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think McDavid even had a little stretch of injury. I think nothing too bad, but
yeah, he had. Well, we all know what happened with who in Philadelphia, so we won't get in with that. But again,
but like Marner didn't play the first year either.
Yeah,
Matthews they decided because now they had these other guys for support, and he was a bit bigger than those guys as well.
Yeah, well. Matthews his birth date was only a couple days after the draft deadline date. So that's why he went and played in Europe with bigger guys in Switzerland for a year before he came back. So
that's true. He wasn't back in a junior club kind of with guys smaller than him. He was actually playing against he was playing against men.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call them big guys. They were actually legit men. They weren't NHL players, but maybe a couple of ex-NHL players probably.
Yeah. So let's go back to that Elias Pettersson hit. What's your take on that and the 2-game suspension to Matheson of the Panthers?
I kind of believe his excuse or I think it was his agent's excuse of didn't think he was that light. There was a pause. There was a shove at the end.
Yeah.
I don't think he meant to throw him down like that, but he didn't stop either. He was going to hit a guy and throw him down. Does it make it worse, or does it make it worse because Pettersson was 160 pounds versus someone else who's 200 pounds? Mm-hmm. The motion's still the same. The result is different.
Yeah.
I'm okay with a 2-game suspension. I probably would have been okay with not a suspension as well, but if you want to send some message saying, maybe smarten up a little bit, that's okay too. So.
Yeah, for mine, it's just odd because we're setting a precedent now, right?
Yeah.
How many times does basically what we're saying here, does a body slam actually happen in a game? Sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes it happens 2 or 3 times a game.
Yeah.
And we've never seen, sometimes we don't even see a 2-minute roughing penalty on them. Most times.
No, most times not. It's just you get most penalties you get out of it is when if a guy steps up and fights the guy who hit your player there. Yeah. But usually that doesn't even happen anymore. So
yeah, but if Matheson did the exact same thing to whatever any other player, that's not maybe 160 pounds, or say like a Milan Lucic, if it's possible, are we talking about a suspension?
Probably not.
Yeah.
It's just another hit. Maybe he gets not unsportsmanlike, a roughing penalty or something like that for that, but there was nothing called on the play, so...
That's my issue here is I'm on the fence here with still basing thing only on injuries. So it's the player who is either not as physically strong or very receptive to getting injuries that now you're getting suspended because of that type of player.
Yeah, it's like I don't mind a message being sent. 2 games is a decent message. I guess maybe one game would have been the same message too, but
yeah.
You do want to protect some of your star players and some of your young players.
Are we only suspending him because he's injured and he's a future star player? He's a Sidney Crosby-esque. It's a superstar player, and we need to change the league and change everything because a superstar got injured, right? Like, again,
a Tom Brady rule almost.
Yeah, all right. Same thing. A Crosby rule, concussions. What's his name again on the in baseball?
A-Rod or
no, the catcher on San Francisco. I call him the Crosby of baseball almost. Posey, Buster Posey. He gets injured on a contact on the plate, and he basically ruins the next season, a full season for his team, the Giants, and Buster Posey, and then they changed the whole thing with contact at home plate. And now they basically went back and reversed it 3 years later, right?
Yeah, I don't mind them doing that either, though. Like if they want to crack down on these types of hits on it, if you want to protect your star players and just call goony stuff, that's fine. And then if in a couple of years you think you've gone overboard, you can kind of let it up a little bit.
I don't know. I'm more on the other side. Maybe I am old school in that aspect. I don't know. I'm fine with them changing the game, but now you have to make, in my opinion, you have to make that call every single damn time. Every single time a guy gets pushed down to the ice, you got to give him a 2-game suspension. They should all get. Doesn't matter if the guy gets injured. Doesn't matter if the guy is small. Doesn't matter if the guy is big. Doesn't matter if he's diving. If he's diving, the guy pushed him down and it looked really bad. 2-game suspension.
Well, I'm reading up on the wording here from the NHL department. It's for intentionally and dangerously slamming Vancouver Canucks rookie forward Elias Pettersson.
Yeah. He gave him a rock bottom, you could say, as some people are saying.
But again, the intentionally and dangerously part is probably because he's under 60 pounds. Like if the guy tried that in Lucic, again, it wouldn't happen.
Yeah. So it's and I'm on the other side of the fence as well, because if you are a Rafi Torres and you're built like a bull and you can skate that hard, you need to let up a bit. You can't let that ox of a shoulder and nail guys. You have to let up. If you're Superman, you have to let up on normal human beings. That is true.
I wonder if there was some talking with the ref. Lucic took a penalty in that overtime. Was it in the overtime? In the Edmonton versus Winnipeg game.
Yeah.
Where he was called for charging. But the replay showed he coasted in from like the top of the circle and hit a guy who put himself a foot or two away from the board. So it sounded and looked like a hard hit, but Lucic didn't intentionally run him into the boards.
Yeah.
But he got a 2-minute penalty at a tie game, I believe.
Yeah. I am on the other
small guy.
Yeah, I am on the other side of if you are physically strong or you have superhuman speed, you do need to know that you have to let up a bit.
Yeah.
But in this aspect with the Matheson thing, in my opinion, he's not that type of player. And it's been done before so many times that now we're calling this suspension. And I'm fine with that. If we're going to change it, but we need to continue it. That's why I'm more of in the aspect, I would have been fine with a warning fine. So you're letting that player know this is inappropriate, and please don't do it again. If you do it again, then we'll give you 2-3 games.
Yeah, I probably would okay with that too.
Yeah, but like if you call if you're gonna set it 2 games, in my opinion, it's gonna be really iffy the rest of the season. And every time I see anybody get shoved down to the ground, to the ice now, I'm expecting them to be kicked out of that game. I'm expecting them to get a 1 or 2 game suspension.
It does set a precedent for the suspensions of the year too. Like was that hit worse than something Tom Wilson's going to do when he comes back? Is that hit worse than something somebody Gudis does in the future? Probably not. But are they only going to give those guys 2 games, 3 games for a dirty play? While Matheson's wasn't necessarily dirty. Yeah.
It is dirty-esque. It's there's a lot of gray everywhere. To me, almost nothing is black and white unless it's set in stone, a rule where it's, you hit somebody and you left the bench, David Clarkson, so you're getting 10 games. That's fine with me. There's already a rule in the book. You cannot leave the bench. That's 10 games. Good. They should start setting precedent on everything. Same with the Wilson thing. If you've made 3 suspensions within 2 years, you have to get minimum 15 games, no matter what kind of thing. Yeah. And once they do that and it's in the rule book, you can't backtrack on that. You can't have arbitrative individuals coming in and saying, no, we need to break this down further. Let's talk a little bit about this, and I'm hoping to talk a little bit about it in the future. What do you think about... We weren't even going to talk about it, but I feel like it now. What do you think about the Auston Watson suspension and then reducing it from, I believe it was 28 games to 18 games?
27 to 18.
27 to 18 games, yes. And it was more of NHLPA and them being on the player side and bringing in an arbitrator to reduce the games. And now also people are upset because Wilson got less games or more games in the end. And also the PED suspension on the defenseman on the defenseman of the Vegas Golden Knights, Schmidt, right?
Nate Schmidt, that's what it was.
Yeah, so he got 20 games.
I mean, I'm okay with a 20 game for PED. I'm okay with what was the other one there?
Wilson.
Wilson, for a stupid hit. The domestic abuse, I was fine with 27 game suspension too. Yeah. If you're doing something stupid off the ice, maybe it should hold more weight for on the ice, depending on the severity. This was assault, so I'm okay with a third of the season or a quarter of the season. Yeah. I found it foolish that the NHLPA would come in and say, no, we should reduce this down. They're always going to do that. That is their sole job, is protect the players, no matter how stupid the player is. Yeah. We keep talking about setting precedent, and this was setting a precedent. Mm-hmm. I think if you want to set something in stone, like you say, if you get charged for an assault crime off the ice, then it should put in the rule book a minimum of 25 games or something like that. You can argue that in the next CBA.
Yeah, I think when it comes to these things, especially the assault, which is off the ice issue, I think the league should kind of set a precedent and have a very black and white rule in the CBA. Yeah. That it's 20 games, 25 games, and you can't, weaver off that. But the other issue is if the assault doesn't go into court and he's not, charged with the issue, that's where the gray area is here.
Yeah, so, that's a Roberto Osuna thing right there.
Yeah, So that's the thing. I think once it's the ball's in motion and the police have done something about it, then you have to set at least a 10-game or a 15-game minimum. Maybe that would work. And then a later on suspension if they're fully charged. Maybe that's where we need to go, right? Because we don't fully understand everything, and the legal case hasn't been fully resolved. Yeah. But
it'd be nice to say he's suspended until the court date, but sometimes those get postponed for a very long time. So.
Yeah. The thing I have a bit of a problem with is people are upset with this is more, that this is less. You can't compare apples to oranges, in my opinion.
No, they are very different things.
Yeah, and when you've already set rules for suspensions and PEDs and so on and so forth, you can't reverse that. You can't go, okay, well, this should be less games because this is this many games. So their hands are a little tied on that one. All right, let's move on to something a little funny. Finally, it's the Nashville banner raising. It's hilarious. So Nashville on opening night, they put up three banners, Logan. It's hilarious. What are they doing?
I don't have a problem with it. I don't see what the big problem was. They earned those banners. They want to. Should they have raised them on different nights? I don't know what people wanted them to do.
No.
I guess they could have just had them up there, or raised one and had two already up there. But
yeah, well, I think you raise a banner when you win a conference title, when you win the cup. In my opinion, you don't raise any other banners except for raising the cup, and then. But they had a ceremony for it too. It wasn't that they were just raising. Sometimes you just raise a banner, or you leave it up there, and obviously the play-by-play guy and the host on the pre-show, they talk about it.
The PA just points a spotlight at it, and they announce, we got this thing up here.
Yeah, you don't need a big, huge ceremony for this, for winning a division, for winning a...
I'm fairly certain that other teams have... I'm pretty sure Washington raised the President's Trophy one at one point.
Yeah, it's the thing I can understand with them is that they don't have much of a history, and they have so few banners that they want to put up banners.
They don't got much up there.
Yeah,
they're good. They're a really good team.
Yeah,
or they have been for a couple of years now. So I guess they take every chance they can to. I mean, who knows? Maybe it was just a snub at Winnipeg too, because that's who they beat, right?
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, no. Winnipeg beat Nashville.
Oh, right, they did. Jeez.
And Vegas beat Winnipeg.
That's what it was.
Yeah. So, but it just, I don't know. You don't, in my opinion, you don't raise and you don't have a ceremony for a president's trophy or a division.
It probably took a while too, right? Like, I don't know how the overall length of it, but if you're standing, I did hear that like some of the Winnipeg players were kind of just like, and what else are you going to celebrate too?
So, okay, and so I would celebrate a Stanley Cup, and the only other real ceremony I would raise, and with a banner raise, is when you retire a jersey, or you're honoring a player that has played for your organization for 10 plus seasons.
That wouldn't do the Eastern or Western Conference championship.
If you win the conference, you put the banner up, but I don't think you still have a party for it, in my opinion.
Well, I guess if you win the cup, you've already won the East or West.
That too. So you're probably not choosing to honor or celebrate the winning the conference if you've won the Stanley Cup. So, but yourself, you would have a ceremony if the Oilers win the division. I guess you would, because it's been so long.
Pretty much. I mean, I would be okay with it.
All right. So please go on our website, check out our episode page. We talk all about our trending now and everything else in there. But in our episode page, we specifically have game notes on what we've talked about. And we even have great tweets that we've mentioned. And even, I think it was, is it Gillian? What's her name again? Logan?
Fisher Gillian. At
Fisher Gillian. Go check out. She has great videos, and she makes a great, funny joke about the banners. I know even and then because everybody was making fun of them with the whole banner thing. They had the fake banners with best chicken wing, hot wings in all of North America, that kind of thing. If you had a banner for raising for the Oilers, a funny one, what would you do, Logan?
Fisher girl, Fisher Jillian. She had most overall picks. I don't like that one.
Yeah.
Maybe best 50-50.
Best 50-50? Yeah.
You can buy a house if you win 50-50 in Edmonton.
Oh, yeah. They have a lot of people buy the 50-50s over there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in Toronto, I don't know. Right now, I would go with the best Auston Matthews fashion dressed current coat. I think that one's a pretty good one. Or hopefully, best friggin' low-balling contract for William Neal. All right, time for this week's Team ISO. And, of course, it's when we specifically talk about one team in league and we go into the blogospheres and get a better view and opinion out there. This week, we are Team ISOing the Montreal Canadiens. And we're bringing back Ian Boisvert. Welcome back, Ian.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's always cool to talk to you.
Perfect. And, of course, we all know Ian on internet and on Twitter. You can follow him on Twitter at Boisvert Ian. So that's BOISVERTIAN. He's a deputy editor at Rabid Habs. And, of course, he does the Nosebleeds cast now. So how's your podcast of Nosebleeds going?
It's good. It's just me and my girlfriend and my old college roommate. We just get together once a week, just trying to talk about what's going on around the league. He's a Rangers fan. We're both Canadiens fans, so we offer interesting perspectives on each other's teams. I know when something happens with the Canadiens, I talk to my friend Trevor. He's the Rangers fan. I get his perspective first, as it's one thing to live in your own little bubble and only hear Canadiens fans or fans of your team. So we try to give each other perspectives of what we think each of our teams are doing. We try to touch on just about everything around the league. Mm-hmm. We've been talking a lot about Tom Wilson recently, and the suspension that he's had in Washington, and we try to touch on just about everything around the league. Try to keep a nice balance. So just because we're Canadiens fans and one Rangers fan, we don't cover just one team. We're trying to get a good look around the league.
Yeah, that's what I try to do, especially with the whole Team ISO thing. I know I'm from the center of the universe, so we like to talk about that team. But yeah, I like to try to get. I know I have a lot of people that are listening, and they're only mostly from the GTA, Greater Toronto area, and they don't get enough input. And I know, I get that, because we're center focused, and yes, we have other teams that are around here, and we used to have other teams around here, like in the OHL, but they never did really well because everybody just focuses on the Leafs, even within our Southern Ontario area, which kind of sucks too. And I get that outside of our area, a lot of people hate us because we talk a lot about our team, and again, the media, and then they talk a lot about this team, because, that is what people like to talk about. And, of course, outside of here, that is what a lot of people like to hate about.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think we spent probably 20 minutes talking about the Leafs on our last episode, just because you look at the scoring race and, there's 4 pictures of Leafs right at the top of the list.
Yeah.
They're an interesting team to talk about. It's for the first time in my lifetime, at least, there is a real chance that this team is not only going to be a cup contender, but a powerhouse for years to come.
Yeah.
The defense is coming. There's young guys coming up for the Leafs, but
I
mean, how do you look at a team with Auston Matthews and John Tavares up front and not want to talk about them?
Yeah.
Wait. My whole thing is, if you're tired of hearing about the Leafs, I don't know what to tell you. You're going to hear more about it, so just get used to it.
Yeah. Wait, Ian, did you mention this is the first time in your lifetime? How old are you? Were you born in 1993?
I wasn't. I was born in 1995, so I'm 23 years old.
Oh, okay, so you're a young one. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen a Habs cup yet. Hopefully one comes sooner rather than later.
Okay, I cried like hell, and I wanted I'm not going to say maybe wanting to, at least in my nightmares, kill Wayne Gretzky. But yes, it should have been Leafs versus Habs in '93, and that would have been amazing. Yeah. But sometimes the refs give the leeway to superstars, so we'll move on.
Go figure.
Yeah. You were saying, so you're a Habs fan, but you're from?
I'm from Connecticut. I grew up here, went to school here, still live here. And my dad grew up in Montreal, so I inherited that, the love for the Habs from him.
Nice.
It hurt my heart earlier this month when the Hurricanes said they were bringing back the Hartford Whalers look.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to see the Whalers come back, not just some team, essentially grave robbing from a city that should have an NHL team.
Yeah. You think they should have an NHL team? Do you think they could keep it going?
I do. I look at Ray Ferraro. He played some really great hockey for the Hartford Whalers.
The franchise.
He once asked, "There's nothing to do in Hartford." And he said, "When we were in Hartford, there was something to do."
Yeah.
I was just down there 2 weekends ago for a Hartford Wolfpack game. The fans there want hockey. They want an NHL team there.
Yeah.
They want the Whalers. I don't know if the Whalers will come back. They need to put a team in Hartford in some capacity.
Yeah. Well, at least they can probably get the colors back and have a similar logo, but not exactly the Hartford Whalers and the old cool team with Ronnie franchise and the rest of them. Who was it? Fred Brathwaite was in that mostly then. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah. Chris Pronger started out over there.
Brian Bellows was Bellows there.
Bellows.
Yeah. Shanahan, no?
Of course, Gordy played.
Yeah.
And they've got a banner for him at the XL Center in Hartford, so
nice.
There's some history there. That city wants a team back.
So what is the hate a little bit for Carolina now having that jersey, though? It seems that Canes fans don't like it because it's not really them, and then I guess other people are like, well, you're just bringing this back, I guess, to sell more. Is that pretty much what it is, the hate for that?
Yeah, the way I look at it is I see it as them outsourcing fans.
Yeah.
In the sense that they can't fill their own arena. They haven't done it in years. This is Carolina.
Yeah.
They haven't done it in years. This jersey isn't for Hartford Whalers fans because they're upset. They don't want to buy this.
Yeah.
They don't want to give them money for that.
Yeah. It's
not for Hurricanes fans because, like you said, they're Hurricanes fans. They don't care about the Whalers. They're from Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah.
It seems like they want fans of the other 28 teams in this league to pay for that team existing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get too deep down the rabbit hole here, but Tom Dundon, the new owner of the Hurricanes, who said he wanted to bring back the Whalers, the way he made his money was from subprime automobile loans. He made his money taking advantage of people who wanted something but had nothing. That's, to me, what this looks like. People want that jersey back. They want the Whalers back, not just the Threads. Yeah.
I'm a huge hat guy. So I have a lot of hats, and I think I have one Hartford Whalers hat, and I have a buddy who likes old school things, so I bought him an old Nordique shirt back in the day, and I also bought him another really sweet Whalers hat. So he loves those things.
Yeah, and I collect jerseys and hats, and I would love to buy a jersey or a hat.
Yeah.
But I won't buy it from them.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel right. I'll buy one of the classics.
All right, so we're doing a TMISO on the Canadians. Let's get to it. All right, there's a lot to talk about, actually. And let's get into the big, huge move that was done in the middle of the summer, and that is Galchenyuk for Domi. Why? And what? Kind of odd, no?
Yeah, so, I mean, those are totally valid questions. Montreal obviously drafted Alex Galchenyuk 3rd overall in 2012 to be the team's franchise center, a center that they hadn't had since insert players. Some will say Saki Koivu. I think that you'd have to go back further to get a center that on any other team would be a number one.
Yeah,
it was Mark Bergevin's first acquisition as general manager. It would make sense for him to try to ride it out in Montreal, try to keep Galchenyuk there. But it just, something clicked. 2 seasons ago, he started out the season red hot down the middle. He was nearly a point-per-game player until about halfway through the season. He suffered a knee injury. He came back, and he didn't look the same. His stride was off. He ultimately ended up playing fourth-line left wing when the team went into the playoffs, so out of position and way out of his role. They signed him to a 3-year deal that year. He just didn't seem to mesh with what Julien wanted to do. Obviously, Claude Julien took over midway through that season where Galchenyuk was injured. They traded away a player to Arizona who is a goal scorer. He scored 30 in this league before. It wouldn't surprise me to see him do it again.
Yeah.
But in Max Domi, they get a very, very good hockey player. He's a year younger, so you have to take that into effect. But they get a playmaking winger. Now, Montreal has a lot of playmakers on this team. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to trade away the one thing you really need, and that's goal scoring. But so far this season, out of Max Domi, it's been interesting because they moved him to center. He's been playing center most of the season so far.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was going to play center early on in training camp before he was suspended for sucker punching Aaron Ekblad.
Yeah.
But he's looked good. I can't complain about the play that he brings. He's a tenacious guy. He goes into the corners and comes out with the puck, even though he's not the biggest guy on the ice. I think he's got a little bit of his dad in him still, in Ty Domi. Obviously, that showed up in the preseason a little too much for my taste. But so far, the trade seems about even. Now we have the courtesy of saying that because Galchenyuk's obviously out injured in Arizona. He injured his leg during the preseason. They're worrying that it's the same knee injury that's bothered him since junior. So Montreal kind of gets a bit of a head start as far as evaluating this trade goes. Mm-hmm. But you get players that put up the same amount of points, but obviously there's a premium for Galchenyuk on goal scoring when he's healthy. But I don't think many Canadiens fans can complain about the way Max Domi's played to start this season. He's been just about everything you can ask for, especially coming over, playing wing in Arizona, and now being a center for the Canadiens. In 5 games, he's got 4 assists. That's status quo for him.
Yeah. Before we get into the way Domi plays and some of the others on this team, let's get into a little bit of the suspension thing. Like you already mentioned, he's playing a little bit more of his dad's style, which is kind of odd because he never looked like he played a lot of that kind of style when he was with the Coyotes. But it did seem like he wanted to, because he's, taking number 13 that he loved when he was with the Leafs. And, they're a big original 6 team. And now he's playing with the Canadiens, and he wants to live up to wearing that jersey and that logo on his chest. And it seemed like he put a lot onto that, and he wanted to show something. And if you can't show by scoring, this is maybe the next best thing, or at least he's been thought by doing that with his own dad's career. So then he becomes a little more physical. Before we get into him playing a little more physical, specifically about the suspension though, were you okay with the suspension? And did you like how he was playing like that, I guess?
Yeah, I thought that 5 games, regardless of the type of game, because the main criticism out of the suspension was, he didn't get any regular season games. Yeah. That's simply just a product of the way that the CBA is written. The CBA doesn't make a distinction between the preseason and the regular season. Yeah. Games are games. That's it. So he was playing in the Canadiens' second of 7 preseason games. Yeah. Suspending him for 5 games would have put him to the end of the preseason. Yeah. And anything other than that would have required an in-person hearing, which means that it takes more time, and that a suspension over 5 games would allow Max to appeal it, and it would just take much longer to get through this. Yeah. So if your complaint is that he didn't serve enough time because he didn't serve any regular season games, I hear that. But that's an NHL's collective bargaining agreement issue. It's not George Peros being a dum-dum. Yeah. He did what he needed to. To that extent, I would have been okay with him sitting out that first regular season game.
Mm-hmm.
They're going into Toronto. His dad is a Maple Leafs legend. His dad was in the building. You know, it would have really, you know, pounded it home for Max. You can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I thought that what he did to Ekblad was bush league. I think that there's a real problem in this league with guys taking vigilante justice like that. We saw it a few weeks ago at this point with Brad Marchand attacking Lars Eller. You know, just a similar looking play, same area on the ice, just popped him in the face a couple times.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's no place in hockey for what Max Domi did. I think Max knows that. I think for a second he just saw red and he punched the guy in the face. You know, I don't think we'll see a lot of that out of him.
Yeah.
I think he'll play between the whistles. He has ever since then. That was a really frustrating game for him against Florida in the preseason. He just couldn't seem to figure out what his role was on the team. The team wasn't doing well, and he took a couple slashes from Ekblad he didn't like, and he just saw red.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's going to be a thing that he does regularly. At least, you know, I hope he plays more games than he sits. But he's too skilled of a player to be doing stuff like that. He needs to play between the whistles.
Yeah. I think maybe in terms of the CBA, I think they might need to I would like them see them change it a bit slightly because it hurts the wallet if you're out regular season games than preseason games. But
the preseason games don't matter. They don't mean anything.
Exactly.
You could lose all 7 of them and still win the Stanley Cup. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And then in terms of his play, I thought he did try to put too much pressure on himself, right? New team, original 6 team, you know, a bit of a homecoming, playing in Canada kind of thing. So hopefully he tones it down, and obviously looks like he has at least to start the season. But going to the team, they have been working very hard in this early season, and I guess obviously with not as a lot of top-end scoring talent right now, is it a bit of a culture change or a sense of no pressure on the club right now? Because you've got those guys like Gallagher, Domi, Shaw, even an older guy like Plekanec that are a bit more grinding, blue-collar type team, right?
Yeah, and, you know, I think most of the league is on to the fact that the Canadians are trying to change the culture within that locker room. And I think from the start of the season, Coach Claude Julien has done a really good job of implementing that. Because, I mean, the first game of the season, when you looked at the roster, he scratched Thomas Plekanec, who, you know, just played his 1,000th game with the Canadians on Monday night against the Red Wings.
Yeah.
But he scratched Plekanec. He scratched Carl Alster, you know, who is signed to this almost albatross-looking contract, but his play just isn't up to the standards that this team has.
Yeah.
So he's telling his guys, all of you are going to end up there if you don't play the way you're supposed to. And they've really come together as a unit in that every line essentially plays the same way. They play fast. They play in-your-face hockey. They look, and I don't want to use this comparison in the sense that I think the Canadians are going to the Stanley Cup final, because I don't. But they play a lot like what you saw out of the Vegas Golden Knights last year.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have that prototypical go-to guy that'll get you 40 goals. But, you know, if all of your lines play the same way and you all work as hard as the guy next to you, you can surprise some teams. I mean, you're a Leafs fan. You saw them come into Toronto on the opening night of this season. I thought Montreal played dynamite that night. I thought they looked really, really good against an excellent Toronto Maple Leafs team.
Yes, that's true.
I think they looked at Toronto and they said, "We're not scared of you," and Toronto had to respect their speed for most of the night. Mm-hmm. Montreal had leads in that game. They didn't back down from a really, really tough competitor. And then the first 4 games of the season were a gauntlet for the Canadians. They played the Maple Leafs to open the season. Then they had Pittsburgh twice, once at home, once on the road, and then LA.
Yeah.
And they beat Pittsburgh twice. The LA game was a little bit of a stinker, but, you know, they've shown that they can skate with really, really tough teams. Despite, as you said, not having some really high-end scoring. I think it's going to be a scoring by committee sort of thing. They'll probably get 20 goals out of Paul Byron like you have. You'll get close to 30 out of Gallagher. Hopefully Lehkonen gets somewhere close to 20 again. But I mean, it's going to be a scoring by committee from this team. They don't have the elite goal scoring. But for the first time in 3 or 4 years, this Canadiens team is fun to watch. They're moving the puck so quickly. They're not always resulting to the bang the puck off the glass like we always used to see with Michel Therrien. They're playing some fun hockey. Even when they lose, they look like a team that could have won, which is in a rebuild or reset sort of season. That's all you can really ask for.
Yeah, they do look like they're working their butts off, and they're going in a good direction. In terms of the going in that direction, the Canadiens also named Shea Weber as their new team captain. I don't know. I find it kind of odd because of the whole Subban trade, but then of course they do a special tribute to the '93 team. So I don't know. Is it because that was happening? So like, oh, we got to do the torch thing in that scenario, so we got to give it somebody. It just seemed like that was maybe the reason why they did it. And how, in terms of the fan base, do they feel about naming Weber as the captain?
Yeah, I think that this was a two-player race to win the captaincy in Montreal. I think it was down to obviously Shea Weber, who ended up winning it.
Yeah.
But I think Brendan Gallagher had to be right there.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's gone through the ringer with this team. He's played on really good Canadiens teams. He's played on really bad Canadiens teams. But he was also drafted by the organization. He came up with he played a little bit for the Hamilton Bulldogs in the lockout season. But has been nothing but an absolute workhorse since he came to the NHL. That being said, Shea Weber is still Shea Weber. He's still one of the most respected players in the league. And that matters when, you're talking to a referee. It's not to say Brendan Gallagher's not respected, because ever since he's been putting on the A in Montreal, you start to see less goaltender interference calls go against him. So referees do look at that letter and think differently of the player behind it. There's obviously the precursor of the PK Subban trade, and that Shea Weber was the returning piece in that. But I mean, if you're looking at that, then Shea Weber being named captain means that Marc Bergevin really thinks that Shea Weber was the guy to change this locker room. Mm-hmm. And he's doubling down on that and saying he's going to be our guy. He's going to lead us out of this. And I don't think that's wrong. Shea Weber's only 33. It's not there seems to be this sense that he's over the hill and that's it for him. He's coming off an injury. He'll be back probably sometime around American Thanksgiving at the end of November, or towards Christmas, somewhere in that range. But I don't think that this means that the team is moving in any different direction. Shea Weber's just a very respected player. They refer to him as the dad of the team. Mm-hmm. They like him, and I think he's warmed himself up to fans. I think fans have seen the way that he plays. They have a lot of respect for the way that he goes about the game, and I do too. And PK was probably my favorite player, but at the end of the day, Shea Weber's still a hell of a hockey player.
Yeah. You mentioned him already, and he was in the running for the captaincy. Why is Gallagher so underrated?
Oh, I think people have nothing. I think people look at his size and they say, "How can a guy like this outwork me?" And he just always does. Here's a guy that's never taken a shift off in his career. He has a knack for getting pucks on net that have no reason to be on net. He takes a lot of really sneaky good shots, despite both of his hands being completely decimated by slap shots at some point in his career. One of those courtesy of Shea Weber, which couldn't have felt good. But he's just a guy that doesn't quit. He's got incredible compete. His dad's also a physical trainer for a Western Hockey League team. So, being in shape is in his family. I just think that this guy just doesn't quit. He doesn't know the meaning of the word. He's a kind of guy that if he was on any other team, he would annoy the living piss out of me.
Yeah.
But he's just, he kind of personifies just about everything you want in a captain. Now, Shea Weber's not playing right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, obviously Gallagher was given an A, and so was Paul Byron. This is their team right now. They go into a period, into the locker room after a period, and they're not doing well. You know Gallagher's going to talk. He's a loud guy, and the reason why I was kind of hoping he would become captain, and it's not a slight on Shea Weber, Brendan Gallagher wouldn't ask anyone on his team to do something that he wouldn't do on his own.
Yeah.
He's not going to tell a defenseman to go block a shot, just because he doesn't want to do it. Gallagher's going to lay down and block that shot, although I'd rather see him not do that.
All right. Well, speaking about Gallagher and that top line, it's kind of a mishmash in terms of the three players currently on there. Not too sure why Deneau is kind of centering the top line, but there just isn't many options. They maybe don't want to test Duran there right now, and I guess he's a bit older, and you don't want to put as much pressure right now on Domi and Kotkaniemi. So it just Deneau, Gallagher, and Tatar, right? And they're playing really well so far. Tatar is like 3 goals, 7 points. Why are they playing really well now as the top line, who's playing against probably top line opposition too?
Yeah, that line is a lot of fun. I think Deneau is a little underrated around the league.
Mm-hmm.
He's not your prototypical 1 or 2 center. He probably tops out at a low end 2. He's probably a very, very solid third center.
Yeah.
Which isn't a slight. Those are tough to come by in this league.
Hey, we had one in Tyler Bozak. He was great.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a prototypical guy like that. He's not going to go out there and put up crazy amount of points, but he's a reliable player.
Yep.
But I do think Deneau does a lot of things well. I think they want him on that line with Gallagher and Tatar because he's very, very defensively responsible. He has a knack for having his stick in the right position. He also really enjoys skating the puck through the neutral zone. A lot of times it doesn't amount to much. Most of the time he just ends up taking into the corner, but when you've got Gallagher on your line, you can afford to do that because Gallagher can go into the corner and win that battle.
Yeah.
But that line works for me because they all kind of bring a little bit of the same thing. Each of them have a little part of them that's a little bit different. Like I said, Deneau is very good defensively, so they're able to transition the puck out of the defensive zone and get moving offensively. You watch them play. So many of their points are based on the team turning the puck over and just instantly making a beeline down the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Tatar has some really good hands and a really, really nice shot. I think a lot of people knew that before he came to Montreal, but one thing that I didn't realize about him is very similar to Gallagher in that he loves going to the front of the net. He scored one in Detroit against Detroit. The puck just hit off his glove because he barreled his way to the front of the net and drew about 2 Red Wings in towards him. That line just swarms when it's on the ice. They don't quit. It's infectious. When the team needs a boost, Julian sends that line out there because he can play them at any zone on the ice because Deneau is generally a decent face-off guy. But also, if he doesn't win the puck, he knows that that line is going to battle to get it back. So you're right. It is kind of an odd line in that Deneau's probably not your prototypical offensive center.
Yeah.
But it just seems to work. It's one of those things that clicks. It'll probably stay a line for quite some time until injuries or maybe the line stops producing. But they've been a very, very nice piece to watch this season for the Canadiens.
You know what surprised me is the Habs defense so far. I think they've looked fairly good. And it starts, I think, with Jeff Petrie. He's been playing very good, very solid back there.
Yeah, Jeff Petrie's a solid right-hand defenseman. It's funny because he really seems to shine in Shea Weber's absence.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a shame because when Shea Weber's back, he goes back down to the second pairing on the right side. But a good compliment for Petrie, they obviously, the need for the Canadiens is on the left side on defense. Mike Riley, who came over, Montreal acquired last spring from Minnesota for a 5th-round draft pick. He's been outstanding for the Canadiens so far this year. He logs about 23 minutes of ice a night. He's basically their top left-handed defenseman. So whoever's playing with Petrie has to be able to log those top minutes. Riley's been good at that. Obviously, Petrie has the 5 points on the year. He's got 5 assists so far.
Yeah.
And he doesn't quarterback the power play in the sense that it doesn't go through the play doesn't go through him, but he does play an important role on it, playing the top of the umbrella and taking shots on net when he has the chance to. But yeah, I mean, the bottom pairing for the Canadiens has been Jordy Ben and Xavier Ouellet, who basically know if I don't play well, Carl Alsner is going to come back into the lineup because they're both left-hand shots. They both know I have to play my best hockey every night, otherwise my spot's gone. So I think that sort of fire has been lit under this defensive team the same way it has for the forwards.
Yeah.
Where you're not playing up to your abilities, we're gonna have to put somebody else in there. So the key for this defense is transitioning the puck as quickly as possible. It's not in your zone very long. There's less of a chance you're going to get scored on.
Yeah.
So let's move the puck quick. That's why I think Mete works out with this team very well because he's very fast. But Riley likes to skate the puck. Jeff Petrie loves to skate the puck through the neutral zone. So, I mean, the defense is turning into a more modern NHL defense in the fact that they love to skate the puck instead of chipping it off the glass, which has made for really exciting hockey.
Yeah, that's pretty much the new NHL is the breakout defensive player. And the one who really surprised me as a breakout player so far this year for the Habs, and you didn't mention him, is Noah Juulsen. I don't know why, but I didn't expect him to be maybe this good so quickly. He looks very good there on the back end for me.
Yeah, and Julian seems to really, really like him. I think he's looking at him as a prototypical shutdown defenseman, but he's no slouch in moving the puck up the ice. None of these defensemen are bad at moving the puck. Juulsen also, he got a cup of tea last year with the Canadiens. Didn't play. He's still eligible for the Rookie of the Year this year, so he's not. This is still technically his rookie season, despite scoring a goal last year. But yeah, he's been excellent. It's difficult because there is such a logjam on the right side defense for the Canadiens, even with Shea Weber out. I mean, you've still got Petrie and Juulsen there. So Shea Weber comes back in. Juulsen's probably a third pairing defenseman at that point.
Yeah.
And they've got other right-hand options coming up, like Josh Brook playing in the WHL right now. So I like Juulsen too. He's been a really, really nice piece, and he's a tough customer. He got hit. I think he got hit by Malkin against the Penguins a few nights ago, and he got boarded. It wasn't pretty.
Yeah.
But he stood up. He got the number of the truck, and as soon as Malkin came back around the net, he drilled him clean hit, but he knocked him over with the puck. He's a young guy, but he's not gonna roll over and let guys take advantage of him. He's a tough customer. Yeah,
he looks older than he plays already, in my opinion. So I like him. Who else do you see coming up the ranks in terms of prospects that'll be a breakout player for the Habs in the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, Montreal's obviously put a lot of stock in drafting and trading for young centermen. One guy is someone that they acquired in the Max Pacioretty trade that happened just before the season started.
Yeah.
In Nick Suzuki, a really young centerman. He says he likes to model his game after Patrice Bergeron, which, as a Canadiens fan growing up in the Northeast, makes me very happy because I've had to see a lot of Patrice Bergeron over the years, and I want one of those. But he plays a real solid game. They sent him back down to junior pretty early. He plays for the Owen Sound Attack. They sent him back to junior pretty early in the preseason. I think they wanted to give him a full season with his team. Listen, this is going to be your last season at junior. Go put up some really good numbers. Learn the defensive side of the game. Come back and play center for the Montreal Canadiens. And I think that's the goal there with him, is for him to be a center born and bred, as opposed to these projects that they keep trying to move to center. But another centerman that they drafted 2 years ago in the late first round, Ryan Palek out of St. Cloud State. Here's a guy that probably projects as a top end 2 in the NHL. Really solid defensively, but he can put up some offensive numbers. I think he looks, to me, if he can project to be a guy like a peak Thomas Buchanan's, Montreal's done a very, very good job with that player. So, I mean, the goal here is to keep drafting those centers, try to do either the Tampa Bay model or the Toronto model, in that, have so many centers that you've got to play some on the wing. There's no center in this league that can't also play left wing or right wing. So the goal there is to just try to move it the other way, as opposed to taking a winger like Drouin, or even in this season's case, Max Domi, and moving them to the middle. As much as Max Domi's worked out, Drouin didn't. And he's looked much better on the wing as of late. There's some defensemen coming up, like I mentioned earlier, Josh Brook, a young right-handed defenseman playing in the WHL. The Canadiens have a very highly touted prospect pool for the first time in a very long time.
Yeah.
Obviously, don't count your chickens before they hatch, because with prospects, anything can happen. But if they go about developing them the right way, which I hope they will, considering they've revamped a lot of their coaching staff in the AHL, I think they'll have a lot of future pros on this team, and they'll really be able to make a push within the next 2 to 3 years. Quickly resetting this team. It's not a full rebuild, because you can't rebuild with Carey Price and Shea Weber around.
Yeah.
But you can definitely reset and go for a win while Shea Weber and Carey Price are still really good hockey players.
2 quick questions right before we go. Number one, you already mentioned acquiring Nick Suzuki, and we talked about Tatar. How do you like the trade? There was rumors that maybe Patches asked to go out. I know that he kind of struggled in not being that pure 30-goal plus scorer in the last few seasons. So it seemed like a good trade overall, but how did the feelings go in with Habs and Habs fans, and what do you think about the trade?
I think that a lot of fans looked at what Carolina got for Jeff Skinner, and said, oh no, we're going to get fleeced on a Max Pacioretty trade.
Yeah.
Especially because it didn't seem like any of the cards were in Marc Bergevin's favor. It seemed like the longer he waited, the worse deal that would come across. But it turns out this is a very, very good trade for Marc Bergevin, especially because, we see how well Tatar has fit in on this team, already in the early goings of the season. So you have a guy that can put up probably 20 goals, maybe 45 points in Tatar. But you also add Nick Suzuki, who's a legitimate, I don't want to say blue chip prospect, but he's right there. He's a guy that projects as a really top-end NHL player, which the Canadiens desperately need down the road. And then on top of that, they added a second-round pick. The Canadiens have already stocked up on draft picks for next season, much like they did last season. So regardless of how they play this year, they're going to have a boatload of picks in next year's draft. Thanks in no small part to Marc Bergevin continuing to add these picks here and there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think Canadiens fans at first were a little upset to realize, we woke up the day of the Canadiens' annual golf tournament to see that Pacioretty was traded overnight. It seemed like, at least to me, if I can be honest, like they tried to hide the trade from us a little bit, which I don't understand why they would. They did very well in the trade. But, it's tough to see another captain go, especially because, there were rumors that Max was the reason Subban left because there was a rift in the locker room after the captaincy was given to Max. And none of that's obviously substantiated, but it's tough for fans to look at that and say, well, now we have neither of them. But at the same time, like I've said, this is a very, very good trade for the Canadiens. I think Tatar's already fit in well. Claude Julien, even just recently, is still beaming about Nick Suzuki. So, hopefully he's able to step into the lineup next year along with Ryan Poehling and some of the other young guys that are coming up for the Canadiens, and this team can start to be a real player in the Atlantic Division and the Eastern Conference.
I know in the last few years, even before the Subban trade, it seemed like Bergevin was always on the hot seat. Fans didn't like him. They didn't like almost any move he did, and maybe he did lose on some of the moves. is it all reset now? Has the hot seat gone? Is Bergevin like in like heaven right now that no move he does in the next year or two and he can't be fired?
It's a really good question. It's really tough because I thought after the season that landed the Canadiens the 9th overall pick that became Mikhail Sergachev, I thought he was gone then.
Yeah.
I think that he's over the summer has regained a lot of confidence, at least in some reasonable fans, that he has learned that there is a different way in this league. The more mobile defensemen are coming. He had some pretty, frank comments about Carl Alsner's play recently in The Athletic, where he basically said he just hasn't fit here. I think Bergevin has done a lot to reshape the way that we think that he sees the game, which I know is a very convoluted way of saying I think he's starting to learn from past mistakes. You have to remember, this is his first NHL general manager gig. And before, he was in Chicago, where everything was coming up Blackhawks. Everything was going their way when he was there. So, I do think that he's been given a little bit too long of a rope in the sense that maybe if you make the mess, you're not supposed to be the one to clean it up. But at the same time, I can't argue with results. I can't argue with what he's done to revamp the prospect pool, to build a team now and change the culture around the team to make them fun to watch. Because at the end of the day, and I think Claude Julien just said this recently, they're in the business of entertainment. This is what keeps fans involved, is watching teams that are entertaining. I think Bergevin's starting to pick up on the fact that maybe the mid-'90s brand of hockey isn't going to win you games anymore. So how long does he stay? At this point, it's tough to tell because you've let him come this far. Why would you, even if the Canadiens are a basement team again this year, why would you get rid of him? He's still just rebuilt. So I think he's in it for the long haul. At this point, we've probably got another 5-year plan out of him. Mm-hmm. And even that's too far away to look into. So I'll take a very long no comment on that Mark Bergevin question.
All right, Ian. Thank you for coming on the show again. You can follow Ian on Twitter at Boisvert Ian. So that's at BOISVERTIAN. Ian, thanks for coming on the show again.
Hey, thanks, guys.
All right, let's get to some more predictions. Right now, we're going to be doing my NHL Award Predictions for 2018-19 season. Let's start with the babies, the little guys, the Calders, the rookies, the Calder Trophy. Do you have... Well, okay, we'll go with mine, and then we'll see if you like one of my picks or you're going to go off the board. My number 3, I got him in the 3rd spot because he's a defenseman. It's going to take him a while, so I don't think he might win this award, but he still has a good shot because he was the number 1 pick overall. It's Rasmus Dahlin of the Buffalo Sabres. And my number 2 is Brady Tkachuk, of course, another high pick of the Ottawa Senators. And the flashy number 1 is Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks. Logan, go ahead.
That's a pretty good list. And I think it's a pretty good order of them. It more depends if Pettersson comes back. Mm-hmm. If Pettersson is out for a little while, he may fall to 3rd.
I don't think so. I think even if he misses 2 weeks, I think he still has the number 1 shot.
2 weeks is fine. It's more if he misses a month or 2.
Yeah.
And Brady's, I didn't think much of Brady Tkachuk, and then all of a sudden he's 6 points or more. He's just lighting it up in Ottawa.
I haven't looked at the points too much, but I did pay attention to the first two games for most teams, and I just like the way he plays. And he looked like he was very established and very experienced. He didn't seem out of place as an NHL player. So I like that out of his game.
Yeah. So it's a 2-horse race, but Pettersson's winning between Tkachuk and Pettersson, unless Dahlin turns on the Jets. But,
yeah. Do you think there's anybody else out there that could be?
That Kotkaniemi in Montreal hasn't really looked at a place either.
Yeah.
But he's nothing. He hasn't been as much of a presence as Tkachuk or Pettersson has. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a few other names out there, but these guys already have a bit of that more pedigree, so that gives them, in my opinion, it gives them a lot of free vote picks by the writers. So, all right, let's move on to the Norris. Logan, who would be your one or two, a top guy for the Norris?
My defensemen's?
Yeah.
I like my Brett Burns and Carlson, but they haven't done much yet. Doughty is always a favorite too, but even the Kings aren't doing well. I mean, I guess, oddly enough, Riley is being the best defenseman by getting the most points. So I'll just have to. I'll go with Riley. Why not?
Yeah. All right. He's actually in my honorable mentions. I think it's so hard for me because I usually have an award called the Bobby Orr Award, and I leave the Norris to a defensive defenseman. And the Bobby, I think they should bring some kind of award like that out, where it's an offensive defenseman, defensive defenseman. But then you don't get those two-way type of guys, the guys that are more of pretty good at both.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's a Selke is for the best defensive forward. Why can't there be one for the most offensive defenseman?
Yeah, exactly. So I am kind of like you, where my number one is Erik Karlsson, and Brent Burns is the other for that number one. So I got him in the tie spot. But then, of course, I love Victor Hedman, so he's my number two. I think a guy who can easily sneak up there is my number three, and that's John Carlson of the Capitals.
He's a very solid defensive defenseman, that's true.
Yeah, he's a very complete player, and he can still put up points. And then my honorable mentions, I'm not a huge fan of Drew Doughty, but I know he's a great player who eats up a lot of minutes, and he does well overall. And, of course, Morgan Riley. Started off well. I even thought he was very good the last season, too. So I think he could be at least in the top five when you talk about the Norris.
Yeah, if he keeps up the pace, that's for damn sure.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, yeah, he's on pace for whatever it is, over 80 points. But, hey, if he finishes over 55, I'll be ecstatic.
Yeah.
All right. The next is the Lady Bing. So the most sportsmanlike player, my number one, is Auston Matthews. He just plays a great game. And, of course, he's not very physical or aggressive physically in his game. Number two, go ahead.
I was going to say, I can't. Go through this and I'll mention something.
Go ahead. Okay, my number two, I think another guy who can move up in the Lady Bing category is Alexander Barkov of the Panthers. And my number three is Sebastian Aho of the Hurricanes. Again, the Lady Bing is usually a guy who puts up a lot of points while, not being uber aggressive and getting a lot of penalty minutes.
Well, Lady Bing is most sportsmanlike, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't give that to Matthews just based off his showboating after scoring there, where he's putting his hand to his ear and he's not so much fist pumping, but running to the glass. The showboating. I don't mind the showboating. I just don't call that sportsmanlike. We're
going to have this in our game notes where we're going to put up the picture of Kane and Matthews.
Which was a great story on a fantastic game, honestly.
Yeah. But
nothing about it is sportsmanlike.
I think it was a very sportsmanlike because him and Kane are good friends. They both play for Team USA, and it was a very playful thing going back and forth between the two. They did not direct their showboating in the face of the opposition. It wasn't aggressive towards anyone. They were just enjoying the moment, and they both reacted positively in both cellies. And even Matthews had a huge laugh after Kane did it back to him.
True. And that's kind of what I liked about it. But you can't tell me the third or fourth line guy on the Chicago was liking what Matthews was doing, or even Nazem Kadri was like, and what Kane was doing.
It's a tough sell for me. But did you like? And we're going to post this also on Game Notes. Did you like it when Johnny Hockey had a break in overtime and kind of did a fist bump as he's going for the break? And if you see the long shot, the goaltender for the Flames had his hands in the air and waved them like he just didn't care.
Ridiculous, yeah. I mean, I liked it. I don't call it sportsmanlike either. I still like that stuff. It's great for the game. It's great to watch.
Yeah. But that was hilarious. I haven't seen anything even remotely like that since Owen Nolan in, the 91 or 92 All-Star game?
Oh, yeah. Points his own shot.
Calling his shot.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So, I don't know. Of course, I don't think that's very sportsmanlike, especially that before he even – a pre-selly before it even happens. That's pretty bad. But it was still very enjoyable to watch, not being a fan of the opposition's team for the Flames there that night. But let's move on to the less sportsmanlike, but more the defensive forward, and that's the Selke Award. The thing I don't like about the Selke, and everybody's heard this before from me, if they've been listening to the show in my awards talk, is the Selke is, again, another award where they give it to a guy with a lot of points, but is also good defensive or eats up a lot of time. Yeah. In my opinion, I think the award should go to guys like Kessler or Jordan Staal or maybe a Nazem Kadri or somebody like that, like a Shane Corson old school type, where they're very good defensively as a forward. They play in the defensive zone. They kill penalties all the time. They block a lot of shots.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily have to be a center. That would be great. Can we have a guy that's not a center? Is there a Yuri Lettinen in the league that we have now that can win this award? So it just seems like a lot of centers are there, and that's why these are my picks, because I think they're more favored to centers. My honorable mentions, again, I think Matthews is more of a complete player, so I'm going to honorable mention him. I don't know if he's going to be in the nominations this year, but I think he will be in the future. Also, Alexander Barkov, he could be there. But my 3, 2, 1 are the same pretty much as last year, and these guys are keep being there. My number 3 is Sean Couturier of the Flyers. My number 2 is Anze Kopitar of the Kings. And number 1, Patrice Bergeron. When you're playing that much ice time, when you're that good overall as a 60-minute player defensively, with plus minus and points, it's easier for these guys to get there when they're doing that.
Yeah, I'll add in maybe a Marner. He's now on the penalty kill, blocking shots.
No,
I keep adding Leafs to your list. I'm not even a Leaf fan,
which is fantastic, and thank you, Logan. But again, he's never going to be nominated for one, in my opinion. He's not a center. He's not as defensive. But yes, he's good. He's on the PK now, which is great. Yeah. But he also, it's all comes down to overall ice time and face-offs, apparently.
Yeah. So I can't argue against Kopitar or Bergeron either, though. Going against those two are.
That's true. All right. The Jack Adams, of course, is the best coach of the year, and this, and maybe even the GM of the year. I find that it's very rarely when they nominate or they give the award at least to the same coach. I don't even think they have this as a same coach winning it within the last 2 decades.
No, because if you're won it once, you're proving yourself as a good coach, and then they always give it to the surprising coach.
Yeah, the team that you didn't think would make it this far, but they made it.
Yeah,
you deserve it, Vegas. All those awards, because we didn't expect you going this far. All right, so who's a coach that you think could project to be nominated for this award?
Well, actually, Gerard Gallant. If Vegas does what, then they don't have to repeat what they did last year, but if they get back into the playoffs and maybe second round, I think that Gallant makes, because they were never expected to do well last year. Mm-hmm. And now that they've done well, they're actually expected to do worse this year.
Yeah.
And you can only go down unless you win the cup. So. Yeah.
So.
I'll give it. And Vegas is still doing well. They're still winning.
Yeah.
Riding the hot goalie.
But do you think, because again, like I said at the beginning, I don't expect Coach to be getting the award twice. He won last year. So in my opinion, he has no shot at winning it this year.
True. Unless he surprises everybody.
All right. So my top three here, in my third spot is Bill Peters of the Flames. I think the Flames have a chance. And if they play very well, he'll probably get nominated. And my 1 and 2 are... It's one of these two. I think one of these two will sneak into the playoffs. And that's John Hines, the coach of the New Jersey Devils. Or my number 1, it's Rod the Bod Brindamore of the Carolina Hurricanes.
I was actually thinking either Jersey or Hurricanes as well. Because they're both doing well. And Jersey, 4 in a row, they've won. Again, no one's expecting them to win much with Schneider out. So
yeah. I predicted that they would both compete for a playoff spot this year. I'm kind of surprised that they're already kind of playing well so far. But, yeah, in my season predictions, even last year, I knew they're trending up. They have too good of potential players to not do well and keep growing and being better teams. Yeah. So it's hard with the Carolina ownership and what's going on in there with their management. But, they're trending up. They have a very good overall defensive team, which is very underrated, in my opinion. So,
well, if Ottawa and Montreal actually keep winning too, maybe Boucher is on that list, and whoever's in Montreal there.
Claude Julien.
There you go.
Yes, my honorable mentions are Claude Julien, and I have Babcock because, number 1, I did not know that Babcock has never won this award apparently, and number 2, I'm expecting the Leafs to do very well this year. So maybe it's his time to at least get nominated.
Yeah. That's true.
All right. Vezina, the best goalie.
I have no idea on this, honestly.
Yeah. My number 1 is very easy for me, and that's Andrei Vasilevsky. I think he has a very good shot at winning this award. Number 1, because his team is a very good team, so he'll get a lot of wins. And on top of that, he is such a good goalie. In my opinion, even the last few years, he's already been a number 1, 2, 3 goalie in the whole league. Yeah. And I still have him there. My number 2, and some of these goalies I'm not huge fans of actually on this list, but I do think that they have a good chance. Pekka Rinne, and that's only because I think he's on the downward decline of his career, but the Predators' defense is so good. Their team forward defensive play is so good that because of that, he has a good chance of getting nominated. My number 3 is John Gibson of the Ducks. He is a tough one for me because I'm not a huge fan of John Gibson, but it seems like a lot of people are. And he does look like a number 1 goalie, and he has very good potential to be a top goalie in the league. So I got him in there. I actually think he's a long shot to win it. And, of course, my honorable mentions are Connor Hellebuyck. Can he do it again, what he did last season? If he does it again, he should be nominated. And then Bobrovsky is my honorable mention. I love him, but it's a bit of a transition year with him in Columbus and what happens there.
Yeah.
So.
Fleury could also be on there. Again, if Vegas keeps going the way they're going.
Yeah.
But there's, like you said, scoring's up, and it's tough to tell, honestly.
Yeah. And what out of the picks that I made, do you think the one is even more favorited to you, or?
Vasilevsky, Rinne, yeah. Gibson is an outlier to me. I don't think the Ducks are going to do well, but maybe that's in Gibson's favor if all of a sudden the team isn't as good as they are, and he does seem to just stop pucks. So
yeah, it's like that's his job.
He's done it before.
All right, GM of the year. I think these are guys that have made some good moves in the last few years and obviously done a good job of building up their teams. And my honorable mention, I'll go with him first, is Ray Shero of the Devils. He's a guy that has won the award a while ago with the Pittsburgh Penguins, I believe. So he's a bit of a longer shot for me, but I think he does have a good chance, especially if the Devils do well this year. My number 3 is Kevin Cheveldayoff of the Jets. Obviously, great rebuilding of the team, re-signing key players, and bringing in a few vets back that have done really well. Number 2 is Kyle Dubas of the Maple Leafs. In a short time, and again, I'm including what he's done with the Marlies here and bringing up those players to the team. I think he's done well. And again, he's brought in John Tavares. What other GM can say that he's done that ever, right? And my number 1, of course, is Doug Wilson of the San Jose Sharks. I don't know. What can you do? It just stealing everything from the Ottawa Senators is good enough, right?
Pretty much. Dubas has a pretty good shot for all the guys he's got, all the team he put together here. San Jose will sink or swim based off of, they haven't done much yet, but again, it's only like 5 games in. So.
Oh, I like what you did there with the sink or swim. Nice.
I don't think he even meant to do that, but.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel I'm pretty sure of these GM picks, though. Unless a team comes out of nowhere that have made a few good changes in the last 2 seasons, really plays well, they may overtake these guys. But I think all of these guys have a very good chance of being GM of the year. All right.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Rocket Richard Trophy. Of course, we know that's the best scorer in the league. Guess who I picked first?
AM 34.
That is correct. Auston Matthews is obviously my first pick. I like him. He just scores way too much. And, of course, he plays for the team that I choose to watch a lot of and pay attention to. Then you'll never guess who my number 2 is, and that's David Pastrnak. I'm giving Pasta a good chance to be nominated for this award. I like him. I like his game, and I think he's only going to get better, which is sad because a guy like Draisaitl should be moving in the same direction as a Pastrnak, right? You would hope.
I hope, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And my number 3, I have to go with Alexander Ovechkin. I still think he's capable of being the best goal scorer in the league. And then, of course, on the outside, I don't know. I just feel that Laine is one of those guys, but he goes on streaks. So if he gets enough Laine, focused streaks, he's good. He's gonna be there. But if he doesn't and he gets too cold sometimes, he's a very emotional guy in my opinion. I feel when he's playing, when he's focused on scoring. And then my other one is McDavid. He usually puts up way more assists than goals, but we're talking about McJesus, right? So
McJesus, he's going to be my number 1. I think he'll still surpass everybody.
Yeah,
people will still be saying like, Oilers can't score without McDavid because he'll be in on like 4 goals a night.
Yeah,
it's not that he can't score without McDavid; it's that they just keep giving him the puck. That's all it is.
Yeah.
They double shift him, put him on the ice, they give him the puck, and he slides it back. Or even if he misses a shot, someone just kind of bats it in afterwards. So,
So McDavid is your number 1, and then who's your 2?
McDavid's my number 1, Matthews, and then probably Tavares. It's going to be a 2-horse race between those 2.
Wow.
And Leafs.
I don't know if Tavares can keep up the pace above those other guys, so that's why I don't have Tavares in there. He's going to be a top 10 guy, but I don't know if he's going to be way up there. All right. Yeah. The Art Ross. Pretty much both goals and assists, total points. We obviously both have McDavid number 1.
Yeah.
Do you have Matthews number 2 as well?
He doesn't get as much assists, but he's been making some sweet passes. So, yeah I could put him as number 2.
My long shot, and I still have a good feeling about him, is Yevgeny Kuznetsov as my number 3. I feel that this is another year he could take it a little further. He'll get way more playing time on the number 1 line and being consistent at that. So I think if he plays way more with Ovechkin, and Backstrom might be playing less with him, there you go. That's another huge group of points that he'll be getting even more of.
Yeah.
And I still love, and my honorable mention is Sid Crosby.
I was going to say, we haven't said his name at all yet.
Yeah. he's too much of a complete player and focuses on team goals more, I would say, than the end of, the end and be all of, single trophies and just points.
Yeah.
So, who would be your, dark horse in the race for the Art Ross?
The dark horse. Probably like a Marchand, or I guess I'm trying to think of someone new. Maybe even a Goudreau. Honestly, he's been lighting up lately too.
All right, that leads me to my heart MVP. And yeah, I actually have Johnny Hockey as my number 2 for MVP. And this is a hard trophy for me to pick on because it just seems that the guys who get the MVP trophies are the guys that, look at me, I'm amazing, and my team would be nothing without me, and that's why I'm winning this trophy. So it's kind of difficult in that aspect. So it's so hard for me to give it to anybody on Tampa, because of that. And it's so easy to give it to McDavid of the Oilers. And again, he didn't get it last year. Is it just only because the Oilers didn't make the playoffs?
Pretty much, I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, but they weren't even close. So as long as the Oilers are close to making the playoffs, I do have McDavid as my number 1.
It's one of those things where he didn't get it because the Oilers didn't make the playoffs. But even if the Oilers made the playoffs, he still wouldn't have got it, I don't think.
Yeah? Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't know with that. It's so drastic, the points and differential between him and somebody else on the team, that it's like it's their trophy to win. Same thing, I think Johnny Hockey's going to surpass a lot of other Flames on his team. And then my third, of course, because of that, is Nathan McKinnon of the Avalanche.
Yeah.
And then my honorable mention also obviously has to go to Taylor Hall for the Devils because he's going to be above and beyond, better than a lot of players. Maybe, except for Palmieri, who's putting up a lot of goals so far this year.
Yeah.
And then I do have my long shots, and because of points, overall points and everything, as Matthews. And again, I put Gibson because I think if the Ducks do very, very well this year, I think it's going to be all on Gibson's shoulders.
Yeah, that's true. The old guys in the center are getting old, and Perry's not even playing.
Well, they got a lot of injuries, so yeah.
Yeah.
So is it just pretty much Gibson and good old Getzlaf doing it all the lifting, heavy lifting there?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So, but their defense again is very underrated. I really like the Ducks defense, but that's gonna help out Gibson and winning maybe some awards or doing well in getting the Vezina.
Yeah.
So
if the media out east sees it.
Yeah, that's another thing. All right. Do you like some of those picks? Is there one that you don't like?
No, they're all based in reality. Like, even though Auston Matthews is listed on every one of those things, except for like the Norris, but you would have if you could have. So
yeah, of course. Is there maybe a guy that I didn't mention that you think might have a chance to win a Hart or at least get nominated?
Well, it's really tough to tell at the beginning here, but again, like we talked about Carolina being good and Devils being good. We know Hall and Palmieri and the Devils. I don't really know anybody but Aho off of and Ferland out of Carolina. I guess Ferland could be up there doing some stuff, maybe a Hart or a MVP or whatever, because he's somehow scoring goals too. So
he's not going to keep it up. Come on, get your head straight.
No. But again, dark horse coming out of nowhere, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, check out jablamhockey.com. I'll have my whole blog of all my nominations and a couple of picks by Logan on jablamhockey.com. So check out my predictions for the awards on there as well. And go on Twitter. Tweet me. Tweet us at the show at jablamhockey. Tweet me at Russian98 and tweet Logan at
Hoagie99.
Please go on there, check out all our tweets and the website, all our blogs and our old episodes, our Team ISOs with all our great guests. Thank you for Ian Boisvert for guesting and talking all things Habs. And until then, see you next week.
dum 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 dum.